All right, there we go. Let's get our other groups up in here before it's officially time to go. Okay, there we go. Boom. All right. Sorry, it took a second there. There we go. Boom. Welcome in, guys. It is July 5th, 6:03 p.m. Mountain Time. Means it's time for an episode of... Oh, did we get the hat on? There we go. Building the Broncos. There we go. The guy to get the swag on. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, on Building the Broncos, Carl Dumler. Carl, how was your 4th?
I was good. Getting to shoot off fireworks for the first time with a couple of my kids. And thankfully, all 10 fingers and toes are still there for them.
That's good.
Only had a couple little incidents, but no, they had a good time. They were all excited about getting to see things blow up and sparks everywhere and all that good time. But and lots of good food. You got to throw that in there. There's always good food with the 4th of July. So yeah, it was a good time. I saw you got to go for a little bit of a hike.
I went backpacking this weekend. Right off of COVID. It was like day 10, and I'm like, I'm feeling okay. I've been tired. I'm gonna do it. I got these permits 6 months ago. I'm gonna be upset if I can't go. So went. It was pretty exhausting. Didn't have the best weather luck again. It's like 6 backpacking trips in a row, or like around it, it's like perfect. And then like, oh, this is the week Nick has permits. Middle finger from the weather gods there, but it's kind of better to be outside than not. So enjoyed that. And how are you feeling? I don't know if you want to put your kid on, not on blast, but share the story about your kid on nearly an incident yesterday, I guess.
Well, we were cleaning the house and he saw some fruit and thought, hey, we're supposed to clean fruit. So he sprayed bleach on it and then didn't tell anybody. And then we ate some of that fruit. And
Did you not smell it or taste it? I mean,
well, it was quick. I just grabbed it out of the bowl, threw it as blueberries.
Okay.
So it's not like you're having like an apple up there or anything like that. And I spit it out real quick because it was easy to tell this was not good. And I didn't know what I didn't know what had happened at that point. I was just like, man, these things have gone bad real quick.
Yeah, God.
And so thankfully none of us got sick or anything like that. Like everybody was energized, went to the pool today. They're all good. So it was a good lesson without any real big repercussions from it.
Those are the best ones.
Yep.
Well, don't eat bleach, folks. Despite what some people out there will say, it is not very good for the human body. But let's say hello to some people in the chat on this Tuesday evening. We got Dylan Von Arks in here saying, "Sup Broncos country." Make sure you guys hit the like button on the way in and subscribe if you haven't already. And yes, Clee, we're going to be talking about contract year guys, the ones with the final year of the contract. Obviously, there's some players where their contracts are set up where they could be in a contract year, so to speak, somebody like a Ronald Darby or a Mike Purcell, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to talk about the guys who are definitively 2022's last year on their deal. So we'll get into that. We also got our guy Dale in the house. Dale, hope you're doing okay. He says, evening, Nick, Carl, Dylan, Scott, and Broncos country. Several players on a contract year like Chubb. Yeah, we'll get into it pretty soon. Got Jeff Noyes in the house saying hello, Nick and Carl and Dylan, Scott, and all the Broncos country far and wide. Good to see you. Kevin Gray's in the house as well. Let's go Broncos. Let's ride. Good to see a Bronco gang in here saying Bronco gang. There you go. Kathy's in the house. Always like to shout out our Mile High Huddle ladies. And Kathy's a real one, an OG. Goes back pretty far supporting the show. So good to see you, Kathy. She says, howdy, Nick and Carl, not Luke. Nick and Carl. Good evening, Broncos fam. It's all good. Also, Greg Smith in the house as well, of course, saying good evening, Broncos country. Aloha to you, Greg. John Juno's in the house saying keep up the great works, guys. Thanks, John. And Clee saying chlorine builds strong bones. I don't think that's fact checked. But
come on, science guy.
I would not recommend it. And Jay Kozad coming in talking about our topic here about contract year players. Chubb has a lot riding this year for him and the Broncos. I hope he balls out. Absolutely, we'll get into it. Sunny Days coming in with the smiley face and the hearts and the hang loose thing on there. Kathy feeling bad about it. It's okay. It's Luke was on a lot for me when I was gone with a wedding and then funeral and Rona. This June was a blur, man. And now I'm moving houses. So man, I'm I'm tired, but it's okay. Lawrence Rivera coming in here, always supporting the show. Good to see you, Lawrence. Good evening, guys. Good evening to you, Lawrence. Hope you're doing well. And John giving us the support here, saying hit that like button on the way in. We got some likes coming in from Steve Lazuski, Evan Carmine, Gary Leeds Palmer, John Juno, Greg Smith, Jesus, Luciano, and Phil McLaughlin. Phil, how you doing, Phil? He's in here. Oh, here he is. Speaking of which, good evening, Nick, Scott, and Carl. Let's ride. Good to see you, Phil and Carl. Now that we are, said our hellos, Let's start digging into this topic a little bit pretty quickly here, but there's a lot of players that we want to go through, and I think the chat's already kind of talked about this guy a few times. So I think he's probably the one that makes the most sense, the one who has the most writing on the line as far as the money he's going to get, his career at the Broncos, and honestly his status as a bust or not. Bradley Chubb has had 4 years in Denver so far in his NFL career. 2018 fifth overall pick, was really good the first and third year in his career in Denver, injured his second year, injured his fourth year, and now we're entering year 5 where the Broncos obviously have the franchise tag option with him. It'd be expensive for an edge rusher, but a little bit of chance for control with him, contract control. But Bradley Chubb, what are we expecting this year? What are we hoping for? What does it look like? Because, I mean, if he even has an okay year, somebody's going to pay him big.
Yeah, everybody's looking for pass rushers. And if anybody even average hits the market, we see them get paid buku bucks, like you said. Free agency, even B players. Phil McLaughlin, thank you for the support here, saying good evening, Nick, Scott, and Carl. Let's ride. Thank you so much for that, Phil. Appreciate that. Always good to see you in here. But and Gary as well coming in here saying, hi, Nick, Carl, and Scott. Go Broncos. Let's ride. Yes, very much so. Man, I'm never going to get tired of hearing that let's ride part. It just gets you pumped up, ready to go for the day. So good to see all of you guys in here. But you're right. I think that's where the Broncos are going to have to make some really tough decisions. If he has even just, like I said, if he has an above average year, like, can you let that walk out the door? Because he's still a young player. You used a 5th overall pick for him. You almost kind of feel a little bit kind of constrained to want to keep him. I mean, I know we got new GM, new coach, new ownership, so maybe they're not as many ties to him as we've seen in the past. But man, it'd be hard to see him go if he has maybe like a 10 sack season. And
that's not average. That's not average. If he has 10 sacks, I think you tag him.
Okay, well, okay, let's say 8 sacks, pretty much above average in pressure rate, very good against the run. Does that sound above average?
Yeah, that sounds slightly above average. I would say that because I expect a heavy rotation this year with the edge rushers. Broncos have a lot of different type of bodies, and their top 2 have a history of not being available. So we'll see what that looks like. But I expect Chubb to have a good year. If he is above average, though, I think you have to at least think about the tag in that situation, and you can do the cap gymnastics there where, you know, you're not committing to him long term. You give yourself one more year to see if he can stay healthy, what it looks like in a new scheme. But above average, I think you lean into the tag, assuming he's healthy. Anything less than that, you're probably letting him walk. The real question will be if he plays average. I guess that's the big one. But above average, I think you still think about exercising the tag unless somebody like Baron Browning or Nick Bonito behind him balls this year, and you feel okay letting him walk and using your resources elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I expect him to actually have a good year this year. He's healthy. With the few videos we have gotten to see of him, he looks good. He looks strong. He looks like he's hungry and ready to go. He looks like, you know, they always say this, oh, I'm in the best shape of my life. He actually looks like he's in the best shape of his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks very, very well built right now. I saw him at his kids camp that he put on. That guy's ready. Like, he is in season kind of shape right now, which is great to see. Broncos need him to be great this year. You know, when we're talking about the AFC West, and the Broncos right now probably have the most questions of any of the teams in the AFC West. And he's one of the big questions. If he can be a good player, a Pro Bowl player for them, like, it just takes that defense to a whole new level. And, you know, Randy Gregory, if he can stay healthy, those 2 guys can make or break that entire defense, make them either a top 5 unit or make them middle of the pack kind of unit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. You are correct on that one. Let's say hello to some more people coming in here. Michael Ronquillo coming in, saying good evening, Nick and Carl. I'm building the Broncos. Let's ride and go Broncos. Good to see you, Michael. Jared says, try milk first for strong bones. I agree. That's a good one. Calcium. We also have Robert Caslow in the house saying, what's up, Broncos Maniacs? Good to see you, Robert. And John Juno saying, now that they changed the $5 super, thank you so much, John. Saying, now that they changed the helmet rule in the NFL, do you think Denver will use the 90s light blue and orange uniforms? I know Tampa is using the creamsicles. I think they will coming up here at some point. I don't know if it'll be, probably not this season. I think they already announced the uniform combinations. But I think it's going to happen eventually. Maybe this year. Don't quote me that they already have it settled, but I hope so. I think the light blue with the D on the helmet are the best uniforms the Broncos have had, and I don't believe in superstition one iota. So like, oh, they lost Super Bowls in that one. They lost Super Bowls in the new one too. They got embarrassed by the Seahawks. Who cares? It's about the players, not the uniform.
Right. Well, and new ownership. What's a good way to make some money coming in pretty quick? Change up the jerseys just a little bit. Everybody goes crazy, wants to go buy the new colors. And, it's kind of cool to own the new jersey, to own the different kinds. And, I have my collection. I have the jerseys from back in the early 90s, one of my favorites for sure. And then I got the ones right when they made the change during the Super Bowl years in 97, 98. I got the dark blue John Elway and Terrell Davis. And now I got the newer orange ones with Von Miller and a couple of the other players. So, it's kind of fun just to own a little bit of different colors. Now my kids in the house argue over which color is my favorite, blue or orange. And that's like one of the biggest fights in our house. What's Dad's favorite color? I don't know why, because I keep telling him it's always orange.
Orange is a good one. That's one of my favorites as well. And I hope they don't go back to the navy blue. I think that's just there's like 20 teams in the league that wear navy blue as their primary. It's not for me. And here's something interesting from Jared Niermeyer. Chubb's future is 100% dependent on wins. I don't think quarterback wins is a stat, and I really don't think edge rusher wins are a stat either. We saw Von Miller not getting very many wins, and he still got a second and third round pick, despite only having half of a year of a contract left to trade him to the Rams. I know the Broncos ate some money for that, but still, I wouldn't say his future depends on wins. It depends on his performance, and above all else, his health.
And I think we've seen with George Paton, he very much separates those two things. Yeah. He looks very much at the individual player and says, what are they bringing to the table? So I even if the Broncos, let's say, only win 6 games, but Bradley Chubb goes out there and looks like a top 10 edge rusher, I don't think you're letting that guy walk out the door if you have any chance to save him.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And Clee coming in here saying, how are the Broncos going to be able to afford anyone if Wilson is going to expect $50 million a year? You have a wealthy owner coming in, so you can raise the guaranteed money while hopefully lowering the overall roster hits. That's players want the guaranteed, so hopefully they can do that. Also, the way the NFL is expanding right now, you can kind of just take a page out of the Saints playbook and keep pushing it down the line, where let's say Russell Wilson might get a bigger contract average per year next year, but his cap hit might actually be less. And you push that down the line where you really buy into the window that you're in right now. So that's one that leans out. That's I think that would be the play there. If you want to bring back Bradley Chubb and obviously pay Russell Wilson, you have means to do that.
Oh yeah. It's now that we have the owner in place like this, and like I said, just the money he has, the cash flow, the cap kind of disappears. I mean, it's still there. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to have to do some wiggle room on some different things, but it's so much easier when you can either fully guarantee a contract that's worth $250 million compared to a guy, in the past when like Von Miller was signing his contract. Broncos really struggled with trying to figure out how to keep him and not set themselves up for failure with their cash flow moving forward. And they struggled for the next couple of years. Like there just wasn't as much cash flow going around. Cash matters more than cap when it comes to the NFL. And like the Rams, everybody keeps going, how in the world are they paying everybody? Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford. They've paid all these guys, Jalen Ramsey. And yet they still have money to keep throwing around. Von Miller, they traded for him, kept paying. I don't know. It just, like I said, when you have the cash to make it work, you figure out a way, and you can keep these players around.
You also have to draft well. It means that you're going to be a little bit dumbbell in terms of the big contracts, not a lot of those medium contracts, and then a lot of rookie contracts in the end. So you have to draft well to fill out the roster. And it's obviously can be risky, but at the same time, if you're hitting those picks, and George Paton, very small sample size, but you have to feel confident in his ability right now to hit those picks. So we'll see, but that's probably the way you do it. So we also have some comments coming in here from Jay Valentine saying Billy Turner coming back next year. Will the Broncos actually go after a tackle? I think it's a continuous kick the can model right now. Billy Turner could come back, but I mean, he could just be another one in the long line of right tackles that have been trotted out there, and you enjoy them for a season and they move on. I'm really hoping that we can get a Jared Veldheer level of season from Billy Turner, where it's like, you know what, he was fine. Was he great? Was he Tristan Wirfs out there? No, but he didn't tank our offense. So hoping for that. And again, the Broncos, I think a little bit snake bit there since the Jawan James signing, one of the worst signings probably for the Broncos in the last 10 years. So even if Billy Turner doesn't work out, at least it's only for like 1 year, 2.5 million. So not a big risk, but something that they're hopefully gonna have to figure out here before too long, because it's starting to get a little bit of an annoyance on my end, at least.
Yeah, and I think there's a pretty good chance Billy Turner, if he stays healthy and like I said, plays average, I think the Broncos bring him back. I mean, he knows the coaching staff well, knows this offense well, and with the lack of draft picks, like you don't want to go into the next draft going, we have to hit on our third round pick, first pick that we actually have in the next year's draft, and hope that third round pick can turn into a starting quality right tackle right off the bat. The chances of that happening are very, very slim. And you can go back to free agency, but you're just going to get another Billy Turner. That's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah. So I think there really is a pretty good chance Billy Turner's back.
Yep. We'll see. So Bradley Chubb, let's a yay or nay on Bradley Chubb being back. First, let's go to Mike S. though. What's up, Broncos country? Good to see you, Mike S. Hope you're doing well. What does it look like? And what are you putting right now as far as the odds of Bradley Chubb being back?
I think there's pretty good odds.
Okay.
I think, like I said, just with ownership in place, you can figure out a way to make the contract work. Russell Wilson's first year cap hit going to be really low. It's just that's the way they're going to set it up. It's always pretty low that first year for a quarterback, kind of skyrockets second, third year sometimes, depending on how the cap's going. And so I think the Broncos can fit Bradley Chubb in there. And like I said, I think he's going to have a healthy year. I guess I'm maybe an optimist. I've always been the optimist on this show. And I've really liked Bradley Chubb when he is healthy. I think he can be a top 20 pass rusher in the NFL. And you don't usually let those kind of guys walk out the door, especially at his age. He's hitting the prime of his career. This is when he should be doing some of his best work in the NFL. I hope it's not one of those where he's kind of like Draymond Jones, every other year healthy, the next year not kind of thing. That kind of worries me. So it makes me kind of wonder, let's do the tag with him and let's see if you can stay healthy for 2 years in a row. Then we'll work on a contract kind of thing. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I know he would, but I think at this point that would be kind of the way I would lean. Go with the tag, just see, hey, we want 2 years before we really can trust that you're going to be our guy. It's kind of the face of the defense moving forward.
And pivot. Yeah. It's going to be pretty hard for me to want to give him a big contract unless you feel like you are getting slightly like the Cortland Sutton kind of deal here, where it's like, okay, you're not making top of the market deal. We do have high guaranteed ratio compared to what your overall base salary is, but we feel pretty confident in keeping you. And this is what slightly below market contract. So that's something that maybe that Chubb, given his injury history, the fact that he's already had, a pretty good contract as a 5th overall pick in 2018, maybe he would lean and jump for the guaranteed of that long-term contract rather than chasing more money, especially if he's enjoying himself in this defense and where this team is going after his career so far, coming in here with one of the darkest eras of Bronco football here over the last 4 seasons. So that's something I would consider here. But you're right on your general point. It's going to be pretty darn hard for him to have a season at all where I'm looking to give him a contract, unless it's that kind of sweetheart Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick deal, where I'm paying him a big contract to keep him here multiple years just because he's been inconsistent enough, multiple ACL injuries on the same leg. Scary. So before we move on, what does the year look like for you to give him that big long-term contract? Is that even possible this season, or is it all franchise tag pretty much no matter what?
He has to be a top 10 player at the position.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, that's talking 12 to 15 sacks. That's being top 15 in pressure rate. That's being a top 10 guy against the run. That's being a guy that when you need a play, he's the guy that makes the play.
Yep.
And that defenses finally start saying, we got to stop this one player. Only then, because like I said, with the injury history he's had, I don't want to bank on one season and say, now we're going to give you top 5 money for the position. Yeah. That's why I'm saying that the tag makes so much more sense unless he just absolutely blows everybody away and says, we got to get something done.
Yep. No, I'm 100% with you. And I know that Bradley Chubb in OTAs was doing very well. A lot of people were pretty impressed with him, out there killing it. But I do want to say that from what I saw, a lot of the snaps that he was standing out in were against Ben Braden there at right tackle, and Braden has played a total of 9 snaps in his career to date in the NFL. So I would not read too much into him beating up on Ben Braden. I think if anything, that says more worries about the Broncos' offensive tackle depth, the fact that Braden's having to play tackle than anything else. And that's the truth of mini camps and OTAs. It's a zero-sum game. If one of your guys is winning a lot, it means somebody else is getting beat, and you're not really going to know how that's going to come out until you see them against other teams, the combined practices preseason, and live bullets in real games.
Yep. For sure. All right, so next player on our list, Draymond Jones.
Yep.
A fan favorite of both of us.
Yeah.
And I had somebody ask the question earlier to me, who's the breakout player for the Broncos this year? And on that list, they had Draymond Jones. And I'm going, Draymond's already broke out. Like, I know not many people know his name outside of Broncos country, but to me, I think last year he had a top 15 interior defensive line kind of year, at least as a pass rusher. Now he's still struggling against the run, but I'd rather be getting a pass rusher guy coming from the interior than a run stuffer. You can find those run stuffers all over the place. You can go pay those guys. That's what you pay DJ Jones to be. But to find a guy like Draymond Jones that can actually get pressure on a quarterback on a consistent basis, and now he's going to have hopefully some other weapons around him with Randy Gregory, Bradley Chubb back. I think he's going to have one of those years where we're going to say, we got to pay this guy.
Yeah. Draymond's my guy. I mean, been a big fan of him for a bit. I think he's extremely underrated, and I'm really excited to see what he can do like this year. Hopefully, with the Broncos having more true passing defense situations with more 3rd and longs and also a lead in the 4th quarter more often this season. So should be excited for Draymond Jones. I'm curious to see how Ejiro Evero uses him. Is he going to be somebody that they try to set up to get the one-on-ones, or is he going to try to do that more for the likes of Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory? I don't know. We'll see. But Draymond Jones, really good. I think he has a chance to get a big contract as well. That's the big holder for me. Would I like Draymond back? Yes, he's a great player, extremely underrated. I think the market could be pretty big for him. And something that is also interesting here, I think that the way it's set up, it's not a Russell Wilson versus these guys discussion. You can get those guys if you want, but it might be a Bradley Chubb versus Draymond Jones discussion with that much money on the defensive line. And something that Draymond Jones has going from, even though it's a slight margin here, is that the franchise tag for the defensive tackle will be less than for Bradley Chubb at the edge spot. So, that's a couple $1 million here or there, but that can add up, get you a different depth player. I mean, you can get yourself another Billy Turner and Tom Compton, both of them for that money. So something to think about there. I'm expecting Draymond to have a big season, though, as long as the Broncos show they can be good enough stopping the run around him, which is a question mark.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he does have weaknesses to his game.
Yeah.
And this is why you don't want to have to be paying him Aaron Donald's kind of money, obviously, because Aaron Donald's just freak at everything.
Yeah.
And I was watching something the other day. They're talking about how the Rams attacked the Bengals offensive line. And essentially they kept marching a linebacker up to this right guard spot, Aaron Donald over the left guard spot. And of course, Aaron Donald is dictating where they're having to go with their protection. And so it's pretty much they're making it where they have to commit. This is where we're going to protect, and making it easier for the Rams defense to know how to attack, kind of thing. But, you kind of hope with Draymond Jones, he can kind of dictate that a little bit of, okay, we got to stop this guy on the interior. And like I said, if he can do that, if he can become a dictator of where they're going for protection wise, you keep that kind of guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's my guy, and I'd love to keep him right now. So, we'll see how it plays out. Let's say hello to some more people in the chat. It's been joining us here. Make sure you guys click a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. And let's first say hello to Ryan Yazzie coming in, saying good evening, Broncos country from Arizona. I think you guys got a heat wave coming your way. So hopefully you're starting to get a little bit of air conditioner there. No AC out in the houses here in Seattle for the most part. So hopefully it doesn't get too hot. But we got Benjamin Flores as well saying, howdy, gentlemen. Been a stressful day. So looking forward to this conversation on my drive home as a distraction. I hear you there. And go Broncos, says Benjamin Flores. Good to see you there. We also have Jay Kozad coming in saying probably the only move Peyton has made that could come back to haunt is Gregory in free agency. If his gut can't stay on the field, if this guy cannot stay on the field. Yes and no. I think Randy Gregory's tape is as good as any of the edge rushers that were on the market this season. I mean, maybe not Chandler Jones or Von Miller, but like right there behind them. But he's what, 4 or 5, 6 years younger than them, way less or way more tread on the tires. And his contract is set up. I know it's a 6-year contract, but it's essentially a 2-year contract with the 4 years after that being option season. So yes, there was some risk to Randy Gregory, especially because he already had to have wrist surgery, which I'm assuming the Broncos knew about before they signed him. But the way the contract is set up, you at least have yourself some flexibility if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, no, they set up that contract just perfect for the kind of risk that he brings to the table, but the reward that you can get for him. Now, that's what you're kind of hoping for in free agency, is that risk reward. I mean, the Broncos did that with like Aqib Talib. They didn't pay him quite top tier money because he had a lot of off field issues that he'd brought to the table, but they put him in that next tier of contracts. And obviously that one paid off huge for the Broncos. And Emmanuel Sanders, again, they kind of paid that middle tier wide receiver money at that time, and he turned into a great player for him. So sometimes you take the risk, it works out great. Other times you get a Juwan James, and then you're kicking yourself. But got Paul coming in saying, took a break, missed Nick and Carl, great friends. Paul, good to see you, and glad got the new Twitter set up from what I understand. So good to see you on there again, and getting the chance to always talk football with you is always a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lawrence coming in with a stars here saying, gentlemen, recognize any new football Mandela effect you noticed? Yeah, I had to ask since start back up the largest particle physics laboratory in the world, CERN. I only kid. I know it's for making new particles never made. Football Mandela effect. Can you think of anything, Carl, off the top of your head?
As long as we don't get it put into the reality where we don't have Russell Wilson, I'm good. That's the only thing I really care about. But I haven't, I guess, obviously I haven't seen anything. I haven't said anything that made people go, who's that? Who are you talking about? And I watched all the 90-yard touchdowns from like the last 30 years earlier today. And my son was watching with me, and he's like, oh, who's that? I recognized all the players. So none of them stuck out. I haven't seen anything yet.
Hopefully we have a Mandela effect where the years from 2016 to 2021 to 2022 seasons, whatever, that's including last season, just kind of like, oh, the Broncos weren't good then? Don't remember that. But other than that, we'll see. We also have Robert Caslow saying, what teams in the AFC West have offensive lines that ball out besides the Broncos? Chiefs offensive line is probably the best in the division. Unfortunately, Orlando Brown Jr. kind of has them by the because they traded a first-round pick for him, and I don't think he is incredible, but he might give them, rather than losing him, considering they don't have the most resources in the world, might have to pay him. Joe Thuney is incredible. Creed Humphrey was one of the best 3 centers in football last season. Unfortunately for them, was it Trey Smith, the right guard for them, rookie as well, was great. In the right tackle position, they might have just as bad or worse of right tackle position as anyone in the division. Everybody in the AFC West is crap or questionable right tackle. I guess we'll go with questionable, maybe not crap, but not great. But the Chiefs definitely have the best offensive line in the division. Then it's a debate between the Chargers and the Broncos for me, and then it's the Raiders a distant fourth.
Yeah, Raiders are so bad.
Yeah, I think Colton Miller's really good. But one offensive lineman, an offensive line does not make.
Right. Yeah, the other 4 positions not looking good. They used a first-round pick on a guy that most of us had like a 3rd or 4th round grade on, and so far he is showing he probably should have been taken in 3rd or 4th round. So we'll see about them. But yeah, Chargers, they've got a couple nice pieces there. Their left tackle looking like he's going to be a star moving forward. Center, I love what they did at center. I've always said, you got yourself a rookie quarterback, get yourself a veteran center to work with. Give them somebody that doesn't have to, that they can control the offensive line. They can do all the protections, help call those out for the quarterback. That's what they did. The other positions, I mean, they just took either left guard or right guard, depending on where they're going to play him in the draft in the first round. Good player. I think he'll be a decent player for him as a rookie. Like I said, right tackle, still big question mark for him. The other guard spot, still a big question for him. But they're still pretty good. Broncos, problem is they have one spot secure. The other 4, they got starter quality guys, or at least guys that have started, I should say. It's just going to be interesting to see how it pans out of the starting 5.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting, no doubt. Let's say hello to some more people coming in here. Chris Jenkins, evening Broncos fam. Hope you're doing well. We also Chris saying Baron Browning is my breakout this year for the Broncos defense. Definitely could be. He'd be a fun one for sure. More pass rushers, the better. And he definitely has the tools to be great there. So we'll see. Corey H. also saying I like Browning this year a lot. So that'd be great. We also have Facebook user coming in saying Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders don't matter. That's fair. This is probably Ernie. Hope you're doing well, Ernie. Because every time we talk about other teams, he said, just talk about the Broncos. They're part of the parlance, man. You got to know your enemies. But let's keep it going here, Carl. Draymond Jones, I'm really hoping he's back, but I think he's going to have a big mark, and I think he's going to want to test it as well. So we'll see with Draymond Jones. I think he's good year, going to get paid.
Well, and maybe Browning plays into this conversation because if you have a guy that can replace the guy that you might be losing, let's say Bradley Chubb, like I said, has a really good year, but also Browning has a great year. You also just use a second round pick on a pass rusher. Maybe they show well for a rookie and you kind of go, hey, we're pretty good here, but interior defensive line, we need to keep Draymond Jones. That could play a big part in how things go. The two rookies that they just took on the interior defensive line, if they show some promise, like I said, then maybe you're looking at Draymond Jones going, you're pricing yourself out of the Broncos. We love you and we really want to keep you, but we also got these rookies that we really think are going to be high quality players for us. And it just that's where the numbers game kind of comes into it. And you're always trying to find that cheaper option. And if you think you got it in a rookie, by golly, you got to go that direction.
By golly, indeed. By golly, let's move on. Next guy here, same draft class as not Bradley Chubb, but same draft class as Draymond Jones, Dalton Reisner, pick 41 overall, I believe, at the top of my head. Broncos probable starting left guard, but one that no guarantee, despite he's been the starter for 3 years in a row. Seems like they've been rotating snaps there with Compton, Miners, and Moody as well, and Dalton Reisner. They're at the guard position. So Reisner, I guess the first question is he going to be here this year?
So I'll just share some things. I've talked to some people connected to Dalton Reisner. I've had some friends that have known him for a long, long time, and the Broncos have shopped him. So he's been one of the main guys that they're putting out there saying, hey, he's available. Anybody want a starting left guard that's had 3 years experience? Here you go. Here's this guy. So part of that plays into then I don't think he's going to be at the Broncos beyond this year, even if he has a good season. I think they played that out a little bit. And I think this year he's going to really struggle to win his starting job. I've heard a lot of good things about how Moody's showing up. They got some other options there on the interior that I think are going to play with and just kind of see who ends up working the best, just chemistry wise between them all. I think Dalton Reisner, like you said, I think he's got the lead right now, but I don't think it's as big a lead as he's had the last 3 years.
Yeah, he's the incumbent, but he definitely is going to have to earn his spot, and we'll see. It'll be really interesting. We got Corey H. flashing yellow on here, $10 super. Thank you so much. Saying, I hope we get a surprise signing here soon or trade. I keep saying it, and I will say it. I just feel the defense needs more. Roster's a little light on D. I hope George Payton sees it the same way. Well, Corey, who do you want? Where do you want them to go? I don't really know what position right now outside of the opposite 4-eye technique to Draymond Jones, where there seems to be a spot. I guess you could argue that linebacker as well, but I mean, I guess you could bring back Alexander Johnson. I'm more interested in seeing what Jonas Griffith can do, and if Jonas Griffith stumbles, then maybe you look elsewhere. But right now, I think it's Griffiths to take, and they brought in Alex Singleton as the floor option behind him.
Yeah, and I will say the defense, like you said, there's a lot of question marks, but the Broncos still have spent top 10 money on the defense compared to anybody else in the NFL. I think they were like 8th or something like that in total money cap-wise spent on the defense. So they've still put a lot of money towards it. I mean, Broncos have been top 10 for the last, since Peyton Manning left on that defensive side of the ball. And I'm with you. I'm kind of wondering where you'd want to go with that, Corey H. Tell us which position you think the Broncos really need to be trading for. I struggle with seeing them trade for somebody. I think it'd have to be somebody off the market that's still a free agent, just because they don't have the draft capital to really be trading right now. And I think George Payton, as much as, kind of the Rams kind of have that F the picks kind of idea, George Payton is not that way at all. Like, he wants his pick. He wants as many as he can possibly have. And he's not okay with the number that he has right now. So I just can't see him going, we're going to make it even less than what we had. But I just, like I said, I think right now you're pretty set on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to the pieces that you have.
Yeah. Maybe somebody like Ndamukong Suh, maybe another pass rusher of some sort. But right now on the surface, I just can't see a spot other than that the other 4-eye position. That one seems most obvious. But maybe you let oh gosh, the Iowa State guy whose name now I'm totally blanking on. It's that post-Rona brain. I swear I've been foggy for the last 7.
Awuzurike?
Awuzurike, yes,
Yeah.
yes, Awuzurike. Thank you. Who maybe takes that and runs with it, but we'll see. But thank you very much, Corey, for the super. We appreciate you, and I hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. We also have Chase saying we seem to have a surplus at the interior offensive line. I think Cush will win the starting center job, though. I think he will as well. Feels like he was put somewhat on notice this offseason based on what I heard, but he's also been running with it to this point as well. And it doesn't seem like there's much competition around him or for that position. There's competition around him because the guard spots, but like literally around him. But he seems to be running away with the center spot for now. Hopefully he can do it. And even if he's just average this year, you don't want to strive for average, but if you're going to have average, it better damn well be on a rookie cost controlled deal. And he is. So maybe just kind of roll with that and be okay with it this season.
Yeah, the coaching staff really hasn't talked too much about anybody else getting a whole lot of snaps there at center. I mean, they're always going to have guys that are taking snaps, and they just drafted a rookie from Washington State to come in and hopefully be the starter moving into the future. But this year, I don't think they view him as actual competition for Cush. I mean, really, everything they've been saying is pretty positive about him. Now, obviously, what you do in the film room compared to what you can actually do on the field, 2 very different things. Brock Osweiler, I heard he was great in the film room. Like, he learned from Peyton Manning, and he actually got very good at watching film, seeing what he was seeing, but couldn't actually get it to transfer onto the field. So some guys are that way. They're great film junkies, not great players. Other guys, great athletes, but have no clue what they're actually seeing on the field.
Yep. So it's different taking it to the field than in the classroom. Just how it is. So those guys end up becoming good coaches, typically. So let's keep it moving here. Some other guys here who I think are in the same vein not in the same vein, a different tier. These 2 guys are in the same vein. Both were free agents that the Broncos ended up bringing back that life is better with them on the team right now. But I think the team would be happy to find replacements for them, younger, cheaper replacements in the future. And that is Kareem Jackson at safety and Melvin Gordon at the running back spot. I think odds are, I'll just kick it off here. I think odds are these guys are in their last season in Denver, both let it to hit the market, come back, test it, and brought back for super cheap. You're happy to have them this year, but hopefully with some extra draft capital the Broncos get before the draft next year, you can find some other options, especially at running back behind Melvin Gordon or behind Javonte Williams. The one that's interesting here with guys already on the roster is that safety spot. Was Caden Stern's going to step up? PJ Locke's been pretty well discussed so far this season. Is Jamar Johnson going to do anything? J.R. Reed, do one of these cornerbacks make the transition to safety? Damari Mathis is somebody they talked about cornerback / safety. So I think both of those guys are likely probably on their way out this season. He's probably just looking to get younger, cheaper, and different at the position. Maybe Melvin Gordon if he has another great season and you're really happy with the 1-2 split. But that's just where I sit right now with that before we even see what they look like in their new respective schemes this season.
Right. Well, and you also drafted Turner Yell.
Oh yeah,
that he can add to that safety group, and so you got a lot of young pieces. I really have a tough time seeing Jackson back with the Broncos. I was actually a little bit surprised they brought him back this year.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a pretty cheap contract, so it's not that crazy, and it's just nice to have that kind of draft of depth at the safety position that you're not really having to hope that these young guys have really taken that next step. But yeah, I think the Broncos are pretty well set moving forward for the safety position. I like what they have. I really liked what Caden Stern showed last year. I think he was one of the more underrated players on the defense. Had his ups and downs for sure, but I think there was a lot more ups than downs when we were watching him on the field. And I think he brings something to the team that really no other player on their roster can do. That safety cornerback hybrid ability that he can just kind of, wherever you want to put him on the defense, he can go up and shine. And so I like what he brings, and I like his ability to move forward with the Broncos. Running back, I'm with you. It's hard to think that the Broncos are going to pay again for Melvin Gordon, another contract. I know they're not paying him a whole lot this year, but still, it just, he's getting up there. He's what, 28 now? 28, 29, somewhere in there. So he's getting to that age where running backs really take that nosedive off the cliff. And he's been really healthy for his career, considering the running back position. I'm very surprised at how healthy he's been able to stay. But I think it's at that point where this is that last year, and then you say, okay, let's go find a rookie. You can go find a guy 5th, 6th, 7th round, even undrafted. The Broncos have had quite a bit of success finding a good running back and one that can thrive in this kind of system.
Yeah. And also I think getting another rookie contract in the running back room that is, 2 years behind the pay scale in Javonte Williams, I think makes sense, where you're still have some options there. It's not, you don't have to next year, but then you'd really be up against it in 2024 where you probably do have to take a running back. So we'll see. And not only Javonte Williams been best in a split back situation, but Nathaniel Hackett coming from a scheme where they used AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones a lot in the passing game and the running game. So it's a big part of the offense. You don't want to overpay for older guys in their second contract. You probably don't want to use a first round pick on them, but still there's value to be had there. Austin Ryder coming in saying, what's up, boys? Made it on for the live tonight. It's been a bit, Austin. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. And we also had a question coming in here from a comment. Somebody saying, Jeff Noyes saying Broncos don't have a tradable player worth a second. And then somebody said that the Broncos maybe could trade Bradley Chubb for a second. What do you think about trading Chubb at this point for a second round pick?
I have a hard time seeing anybody give up that.
Yeah.
He's got it's not an expensive contract, but it's not cheap either on the 5th year pick or the 5th year of his contract.
Option.
Yeah. The 5th year option. I think the Broncos, unless they ate most of the cap, would have a trouble getting a second round pick for him. I think he's more valuable to the Broncos than he is in a trade right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also you don't really know. You're Broncos fans, and the Broncos are going to have to change their perspective right now. We're not in a asset accumulation phase anymore where it's like, okay, well, we need to make sure we have as much as we can. So that way, when the moment to strike hits, we can go. We're at the moment has come. You have the quarterback now. Roster is probably about as good as it's going to be, considering the cap stuff that's coming up. The lack of draft picks in the last draft and this draft probably mean you see somewhat of a dip overall roster talent wise in the next 2 seasons. Doesn't mean it has to happen. You're backed up against the wall. It doesn't matter as much because you have a quarterback. Doesn't mean anything if you don't have the quarterback. So you make that trade every time. But you need to be ready to go up and get it right now. And trading Bradley Chubb, even though you get yourself a second round pick, you're taking away from your current window that you're in at a position where you have question marks already. I don't think you add to those question marks by trading Bradley Chubb, unless somebody blows you away and you get like let's say you are 2-4 week 6 and somebody offers you a 2 and a 4 to trade him and you're eating half his contract. Hell yeah. At that point, then you lean into it. But right now doesn't make sense.
Right. And like I said, who's replacing him right now on this roster? Baron Browning maybe could be a good starter quality, but we don't know. He hasn't actually started at that position in the NFL. I know you just used a second round pick on a pass rusher, but he's pretty small. I really don't want that guy starting this year. I think teams are going to sit there and go, there we go. That's where we're attacking every single play. Let's just run at this guy until they just send so many pieces to have to help him that then everything else opens up. Yep. So I really think the Broncos need Bradley Chubb this year to be great. If they're going to be a great team, they need Bradley Chubb to be live up to that top 5 pick.
Yep, absolutely. So moving on here, we talked, Draymond Jones, Bradley Chubb, Dalton Risner, Kareem Jackson, Melvin Gordon, a trio of offensive linemen that were brought in on 1-year contracts or having 1 year left in their contract that will be interesting. Calvin Anderson, obviously, Tom Compton, and Billy Turner. Out of these guys, who do you think is the most likely to be brought back beyond 2022 right now? Obviously, we want to see what they look like in the new scheme. It's totally different. We're, somewhat talking out of our butts more than normal on this one because we want to see what this season looks like with those guys. But any of those guys, where are the vibes at for all 3 of those guys if anybody's coming back?
I have to lean towards Billy Turner.
Okay.
One, he has that chemistry with the coaching staff. He's been with Nathaniel Hackett for, 3 years now, something like that, 3-4 years there with Green Bay. I think it's 3. So he's got that chemistry built in. He knows this offense. He knows what's going to be expected of him. He also has the ability to kind of play some different positions. Let's say you do go out there and you find a great right tackle. Well, you're not paying Billy Turner so much money that you're saying he has to only play right tackle. You could move him on the interior. You can say, okay, you've played guard before. You're pretty good at guard. go in there, see what you can do. And so I feel like of the three, he would be the guy that I would consider most likely to be back for the Broncos. Because like I said, he's not going to cost a whole lot, but I think he can still be a starter quality player for him at a lot of positions. What about you?
Yeah, I honestly leave Tom Compton here. I think he's the best run blocker of the unit, and he doesn't have the Billy Turner's injury stuff is scaring me. And it just seems like it's not going away. It's been an issue. They knew it when they signed him it was going to be an issue. So I think Tom Compton is the one that interests me the most. He's a really good run blocker. Also, you have questions on the guard and the right tackle spot going forward. I think right now I'm more confident, even though Billy Turner has played some guard in his past. I'm more confident, more competent, confident with Tom Compton there right now. So I think Compton is the one that you want to keep an eye on there as far as bringing him back. Maybe he can even slide into a Graham Glasgow-esque, super sub role with being a better run blocker than Glasgow has been in his career. So he's the one that sticks out to me. None of them are that young. I think Compton is 33 years old. Billy Turner is 31. And Anderson is the wild card here. And the big one for me with Anderson that is would be interesting is if he, let's say, knock on wood, Bowles goes down and Anderson plays well, maybe then you look to go cheaper at the position, keep Anderson, and move on from Garrett Bowles. But talking, infinite realities out there with that situation. John Fields coming in saying, hello, fellas, should we sign Ndamukong Suh? I think as long as he's out there and doesn't seem to be an imminent signing for him, I'd leave him be. And I want to see what the likes of Deshaun Williams and Owuzurike look like at that 4-eye spot before I sell out for Ndamukong Suh. I'm not really worried about. I see some in the comments here. I think Dale saying potential locker room cancer, et cetera, et cetera. Never really seemed like he was hated or an issue in the locker room. He just kind of had issues with his temper and making boneheaded BS plays on the field from time to time, which is not good, no doubt. But he's been an Iron Man, a good player. So I want to see what these young guys look like first in minicamp. If they're not picking it up, then maybe then you'd go that way.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't cause enough problems in Tampa Bay to keep them from winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that signing. Like I said, if I would wait on it as much as you possibly can, get into training camp, see what these rookies look like, see what McTelvin Agim looks like. All these other guys, just see, okay, what is our depth really looking like? Because I love the starters. I don't know what any of the other players behind them look like. Could they actually step in, be a starter quality player if one of those guys went down? If not, then yeah, bring in Suh. That's fine. I don't think he's going to cost an arm and a leg or anything like that. I think he still has enough in the tank to be at least a good rotation player for you. And so I'm for it. I've always liked Suh. Like I said, some of the stupid things he does on the field, you hate. I watched him at Nebraska because my wife's from Nebraska, and I watched him back in those days because I had a lot of Nebraska friends. And man, he was one of the biggest one-man wrecking crews on defense I've ever seen in college football.
Got Heisman buzz.
Yeah, I don't know how many plays I watched him just get triple covered or triple blocked because teams are just like, this is the only guy we have to stop, and then we can beat Nebraska. And it was crazy. And he still beat triple blocking at times. It was just crazy to watch. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him with the Broncos.
Yeah. I wouldn't be against it right now. I think it'd be more smarter to sit back and to keep that money in your pocket because it could roll over. You might be surprised by one of these guys you already have on the roster, and injuries are bound to happen. So I'd rather sit still and use that cash then to go after an area where you get injured in preseason, in training camp, et cetera, rather than spending it now. And I think that's what the Broncos will do. Or it could be that there's no injuries or whatnot, and they are not excited about what they've seen from their interior defensive lineman at that 4-eye spot, not named Draymond Jones, and they go elsewhere. Or maybe they decide Mike Purcell with DJ Jones at the 4-eye spot. I don't know. I'm really curious to see how the rotation goes for the defensive line this year. It's one of the bigger question marks I have this season. And got a few more names here wanted to get to before we get on out of here, Carl. Number one here, well, not number one, but next on the list for me, Malik Reed. Broncos offered the original on tender for him. He's had a lot of sacks in his career to date. A lot of them have been calculated as not garbage sacks, but coverage sacks, ones where, and that's a credit to him too, because he's not giving up on plays. He's hustling, getting through his blocks, even if it's, after 3 seconds after the ball snapped. He is finishing, which there is value to that. But Broncos placed an original round tender on him. think he only got paid $2.5 million this year, and nobody came calling, which is somewhat surprising given how many sacks he's had. So Malik Reed, what do you think?
He gone.
He gone? Yeah.
No, it's like I said, for what he is, being like that fourth pass rusher on your team, he's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of teams don't have his caliber as a fourth pass rusher. I don't think sometimes we rag on him a little too much because, like I said, he's not as good as the numbers say. Those stat numbers get very much inflated when you look at when the sacks happened, how they actually happened, who they happened against, those kind of things. It's kind of like last year with when the Broncos were playing Dallas and they dominated. Was it their left tackle? I think it was their left tackle was down. Their starter was down with injury, and their backup came in and just got dominated that game. And everybody's going, oh, look at these young pass rushers. They're coming in and doing this great thing. We don't have anything to worry about. And then the next game, they got shut down. Like sometimes it's just a matter of the matchup you have. And so, yeah, Malik Reed, he's one of those players. I kind of hope somebody has some injuries at the pass rusher position and just say, we're so desperate, we're going to trade 6th, 7th round pick for him. And the Broncos say, yep, go for it. I think that's what they were kind of hoping for a little bit, that somebody would bite and just take him off their hands. But I don't know. He's kind of in that middle ground. He's not so bad that he should be out of the NFL. Like he should be on a roster somewhere.
Yeah.
But he's not good enough to be trusted. Let's say again, if an injury happens, you don't want this guy starting for you.
Yep. Nope. I agree with you. And hopefully he will have a good career beyond this. It's just, I remember when people were talking about, Malik Reed being a starting caliber edge and they were looking for him to be, next coming of Shaq Barrett. And it's just like, don't see that on there. But yeah, he's Jason Korb coming in saying Reed is a potential trade a guy for a 6. I think that's kind of what you're looking for here. He's one that I think is one of the Broncos' more tradable assets. Obviously, Baron Browning's going to play edge. You have Jonathan Cooper there, Nick Benito, Bradley Chubb, Randy Gregory. If you had like 3 years of control left with Malik Reed, maybe you have a conversation. That's kind of the Jonathan Cooper mold. But with Malik Reed, probably not. Seems like somebody that hopefully you can get a draft pick for. But we'll see. And the final guy I want to talk about here, Sam Martin, punter, final year of his contract. Yep, we're getting into specialists, Carl. What do you think?
Ooh.
It's for me, I mean, you're hopefully bringing in somebody that can, maybe somebody even comes in and beats him out this season, but hopefully you're not paying too much for a punter and can save some money there. It's on you, Stukes. Dwayne Stukes. Find us a guy. You found us a kick returner, hopefully. We'll use a 5th round pick on a punter. I don't even care as long as they're cheap and not costing against the cap.
I was actually a little bit surprised with how many draft picks the Broncos had that they did not draft a punter.
Yeah.
I don't mind Sam Martin. I don't think he's a bad punter by any means, but if your guy is not a top 5 punter, I'm not looking to pay him. I'm looking elsewhere because there's plenty of punters out there on the market that you can get for pretty darn cheap. Sam Martin, it's not like he's being paid a ton of money to be with the Broncos right now, but it's still more than, 6th, 7th round pick kind of guy that you could have brought in. And this last draft, I think was one of the better punter drafts. If you can say that, I don't know. It's kind of weird to say that, to be talking about it, but really it was. There's quite a few pretty good punters that were coming out, and the Broncos said, nope, we're good with Sam Martin. So I was a little surprised by that. And maybe they're just sitting there saying, hey, we didn't want to put another question mark on our whole new coaching staff of, hey, now you got to go out there and train up a punter kind of thing. But I would be surprised if Sam Martin's back next year.
Yeah, nope, me too. Me too. It just seems like the way that it's setting up right now, but maybe you'll have a great year. We'll see how it plays out in the end. But guys, I think that's going to be it for us. We're going to be getting on out of here. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. Hopefully everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. Everybody still has all their digits, and hopefully you didn't set any wildfires since moving out here with the Eagle Creek fire that was in 2018, I believe it was 2017. Liking wild fireworks less and less because man, so much damage out there, and it's going to get pretty dry in the summertime out here. So be safe with your fireworks. I guess it's your right if you want to do it, but just be smart and protect your kids, protect your eyes, and only you can prevent wildfires. Smokey the Bear there for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, you're right. You got to be careful with it. Since having kids, the whole fireworks thing has kind of changed my mind of, obviously just being careful with my kids, not wanting to see them get burned and all those kind of things, but still want them to have the fun that I did as a kid. But like I said, be safe, be smart out there, and just, I don't know, you got to be careful for sure.
Yeah.
We don't need any more trees gone.
No, God. Yeah. Final thing, it's past the July 4th now. If you have any more, just light them off tonight. But if I hear a firework going off outside, July 9th at midnight, I'm finding you. I will find you. So everyone have a good one. Yeah. Oh my God. Everyone have a good one. We appreciate you. We will see you live again tomorrow. It'll be Luke and I on Mile High Insiders. But thank you for everybody for joining us today. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Choose kindness, choose compassion. Go Broncos.